back, and now it's time to talk about the thing that's going to hit tomorrow, the NBA trade deadline. So probably hit after you've all seen all this, but we'll get to it. So here's Bethke.
In a way, it's kind of nice because there is going to be a wave of things that happen today and did happen as we were recording, which was smart for us to kind of put off doing this as much as we could. Um, but ultimately, there will also be probably a fairly big mad dash towards the deadline tomorrow. Doesn't mean that big and interesting players are going to be traded. Just means that anybody wanting to finish up their books, anybody that wants to do, anything prospectively now that they kind of have seen the rest of the landscape, especially after the trades we do know about, they could kind of have their moment to do so. Those trades will be interesting, but that gives me a week to kind of sift through what's actually interesting, and we can talk about it next week. But mostly, this one's just about recapping things. We've done a lot of conversation about. Okay, now we got. All right, now we got the full details on one of the trades we're going to talk about. Third trade, I guess we're going to talk about. We're going to do it in chronological order to some extent. At this point, it's possible that I've gotten something out of date, but I don't think so.
I've got all the dates on my list, so.
Nice. Okay, let me make sure that nothing's crazy here. Because another trade just got another edition. And I think the theme so far today is um, the way these trades are going to get announced is going to be a little premature because everybody's really trying to, I guess, replace the what's been gone with just the Woj and the Shams version of doing this. Uh, because we got one of these bigger deals was initially reported as a 5-team deal. Now it looks like it'll eventually be a much less complicated deal, but then maybe birth a bunch of other deals. We get the usual player showing up in a jersey that's not the jersey he's going to stay in or ever play in, kind of chaos. But with this situation, it feels like they are calling a little early because we just got one that I think was initially announced 3-4 hours before we started recording. And then now it's finally official and there's another team and player added to the conversation. So we'll get into that one. We're going to start here with the hometown. Now we've already done all the Lucas stuff. Caesar, it's just it's tough, but we are going to get right back into the Mavs. Unfortunately, they are the second trade chronologically on my list.
Well, before you go on to the second trade, I do want to add a little something that's not directly impacted by the Luka trade, but there are some correlations and dots that you can put together in the grand scape of who the team is owned by and what their whole motive is, right? Now, this isn't to say anything's happening anytime soon. It's imminent, but this is something I just saw now, right? And it's the Texas governor has said in a recent interview that he has zero objections to sports betting legislation. Thank you. So he has no problem with it. And in his words, the reality is that I'd be shocked if there were not some Texans that do it already in regards to sports betting. So
you wouldn't be shocked.
In regards to sports betting, so that is a positive for the Adelsons in their whole lobbying attempts to open up sports books in Texas and possibly keep the Mavs from moving to Vegas in the future. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't see that. I still find it hard to believe, but that is good. That is the
he can, yeah, that's one of those things where he's just going to say something because he knows it has nothing to do with anything he's doing, but
yeah,
it's not nothing. It's not a whole lot of something either, but it's not nothing.
No, it's not nothing because again, school choice is probably gonna already slam dunk if it hasn't already. The R words are up to no good and they're making trouble in the neighborhood. And maybe if they do enough damage, they are going to be able to get around to doing something that, all Texans can enjoy. And so, whatever. I mean, this is what it takes. And I mean, for them, it's the same argument I've had for weed. he's going to say it here. And I hate the way he said that because it's the way Texans always act in this situation, especially these old guys. They act like, well, all shucks, I guess maybe it does goddamn does happen. Knowing that we all grew up the same way, we all had fathers who got us in bars way too early, out over there going to the bartender, doing the circles, or playing squares. That's what it was. Doing the squares, putting their number down on the square. You're watching the game. Dad's not really caring about the game. He's caring about the score of the game. You're like, I don't understand all that. Like, one team's winning, one team's losing. We all grew up around it. Like, everybody grew up in a situation in Texas. I think most
how
of
about
I
this?
heard
How
about
about this?
squares till I was like 24.
A parent taking you to a gas station that had a little secret
gas
corner,
station. Yeah.
and there were slot machines that shouldn't have been there, accepting real money.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
I'll do you one even better. Certain little convenience stores that are privately owned have a little back room where you can, write down. You said squares. In this case, it's writing down actual lines, right? And you just slip them some cash, and if you win, you come and collect. And if you didn't, well, hey, that's what happens when you don't hit on your sports bet.
No, I'm telling you, I actually sometimes get a little pissed off whenever I go over to the liquor store by my house because I'm just trying to, go grab a little bottle of wine or something, and I come in at the wrong time, and people are like, and dudes on the phone like, "No, we're not taking bets on the Green Bay game." Or they say it in kind of code though. They don't say it as I said it very narky. Obviously, they understand how to speak on phones. But yes, legalizing the gambling is important. So we'll see. I never really bought into the moving the team thing, but ultimately I still stand on watch the league's financials. If the league feels like they're going to expand and that they can, and that is the best formula moving forward, then the Dallas Mavericks have no reason to be scared whatsoever. If in the event that they say, hey, you know what, we've reconsidered, we don't believe in expansion's the right way to move forward financially, New Orleans bye. First of all, sorry, like straight up Pelicans. You're most likely in Seattle, but you potentially could be in Vegas. I think Seattle get the nod first. And then yeah, there would be one of the other franchises would definitely be sweating a little bit, I would think, but I still wouldn't worry about the Mavericks too much. Even though the ties are there, this is a frustrating move, and it's easy to sort of blame on. But getting into the other team in Texas, at least so far, yeah, Houston actually is involved in one trade today, but it's very minor. San Antonio Spurs, they have started building the pieces around Victor Wembanyama. Well, I guess they technically already did since, well, at least for now they have. But this is a choice. This is marrying a talented player. De'Aaron Fox is how old? That part of
26, 7?
Yeah, he's in his late 20s at this point, right? He's been around a while.
27. Yeah. De'Aaron Fox, awesome player. Not a perfect player, but he's an awesome player. And I think that when it comes to what the Spurs are building, I think it's a slam dunk for a lot of reasons for them. Tonight alone, obviously his first night, I think they won basically running pick and roll or some pick action with Wemby. There you go.
Fox ended up with 13 assists.
Yeah, he looked amazing. 13 assists, 1 turnover, I think is what I saw on the stat line earlier. So look, obviously you're excited about De'Aaron Fox being a San Antonio Spur face value. That's enough. Those two guys, that's enough. Really, though, where you get excited here is Jordan McLaughlin. Just kidding.
I was going to say, what I get excited about is the nothing we gave up, seemingly. I mean, we gave things up, but nothing that was so extra valuable.
And it came on the heels of the Luka trade, so people were really losing their minds. And people were like, De'Aaron Fox got 3 first-round picks. And it's like, well, they did, but one of them is almost 100% guaranteed to be 2 seconds. And the other 2 are probably like low 20s. So or high
I mean,
20s.
to be fair, Sacramento did pull in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks in this trade.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, for whatever that's worth, the Thunder keep
oh
adding
yeah,
them
well
up, but
yeah,
there's
there's
only
the
so much you can
seconds.
do
Yeah,
with
you
them.
get 3 seconds out
I'm
of
just,
it.
I'm just saying,
Well,
like
technically, most likely it's gonna be 7 picks. It'll be
the
2
one broken
seconds.
into two. Yeah,
Take away one of the first 2 seconds, most likely.
but everyone seems to
Um,
just love stockpiling picks. But it's like there's only so many roster spots. You can only bring in so many guys a year. What are these picks doing for you?
Well, the seconds are good. The seconds people actually do underrate sometimes because, yes, I understand that sometimes it's drafting Bronny James or whatever, drafting
Well, I
guys
mean, if
that
I've
are
got
his
6
age and
of
trying
them,
to
like
develop them.
they're not all making the team.
No, but second round picks, I think, are very important for teams trying to make deals at the deadline, trying to get little incremental pieces. They become so much more valuable this time of year that you're crazy not to have them. Dude, what was it? 2 years ago, the Bucks sent like 5 of them out
They
for
they feel
Jay
like they're
Crowder.
more valuable as trade assets than they ever are as actual picks.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, obviously, I think that that would probably be skewed if you tried to measure it because of how big it would hit when you get a guy like Jokic or something. Um, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, you're not getting Jokic in the second round. So yeah, the second round picks, obviously, I'm not that crazy about. I thought it was fine for the Kings. It's a funny move for the Kings, is what I would call it. They made another funnier move as we get on to the trade stuff.
I mean, they kind of did just a smaller version of what the Mavs did, where they're like, "Well, the Supermax isn't happening, so get what we can out of this."
Yeah, there was an aspect of this. There was definitely an aspect of this that was De'Aaron Fox saying, "Okay, well, I'm done with this. We're not going to see eye to eye on things. Um, let's go ahead and find me a partner to dance with here." And I've got one specific destination. It's pretty easy. It's pretty obvious. They've got plenty of assets. Go ahead and give them a call. And again, you got to credit San Antonio for really coming away as a winner here. Gave up, had to match a lot of money here, which is the scary part, right? That was what I was kind of preparing. We didn't record previous when we knew this trade was going to happen, but before it actually happened. And basically, what I prepared for was scenarios similar to this. And I did cook up a scenario in which the Spurs essentially salary dumped all the contracts they don't want and just got rid of picks and made this trade happen so that they didn't have to get rid of anybody or have to make any early decisions on young players. And they did just that. So that was pretty impressive, I think. City Sissoko, yeah, there you go. He ended up being in Sacramento for all of a couple minutes. We'll talk about a little trade that again, the second Sacramento trade later. Um, Levine is going to be in the Kings lineup now. I think it's cool. I think it's fine. I think for their Vivek that owns their team, I think that's sick. I think that's where he wants to be, lighten the beam more than not in the regular season, and then just taking what you can get in the playoffs.
He's only 29. I thought he was way older than that.
Levine?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of injuries there, but no, he was a very young kid when he got into the league, so that's his benefit. I think he's a really talented guy. He's had the best season of his career, I think, and I like the team, but it's still sort of like this Kings just kind of dug their heels into being this team that can score a lot of baskets but doesn't really get into the defense part. And then when it comes to like ball movement, it doesn't feel like a lot of these guys are the kind of basketball players that um, think past and think through the team as much as they do isolating single defenders and getting to work, which is fine, but it's, for them, it's limiting. Then there's still some three ball stuff. I think Levine this year being so good, it probably makes you not worry about that. The Bulls, of course, involved in this whole mess.
I was going to ask, what are Bulls fans sad about Levine? I assume they love that guy, but I might be wrong.
I think the Bulls fans are pissed right now because they got to watch the entire nation in sports world, frankly, react and call the Mavericks the stupidest team in the world, And the Mavericks still have Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, and some decent assets moving forward. Chicago Bulls, they have been mediocre. They have plenty of guys that are interesting, plenty of guys that you think maybe you could have flipped in previous years to get some assets. And they've basically not even gotten a first round pick out of Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. They probably won't get one out of Nikola Vucevic if they're able to move him by the deadline. Instead, they took on the salary of Trey Jones, which is not that bad. I don't think they want Trey Jones, but I think another team might, especially for his cost. That's fine. Kevin Herter, that's fine. They probably don't want him long term, but Kevin Herter's not a bad player. He's just a little overpaid at this juncture. That'll correct itself whenever his contract's up, and he'll be a very nice commodity again. Zach Collins, that one they're just hanging on to because I know that there's already rumors they're going to try to move that stuff, but good fucking luck, Chicago. Yeah, I mean, again, Patrick, I'm stunned that the Spurs were able to just basically laugh at the poverty franchises here. Be like, hey, man, last time we were good, y'all were mediocre. We're back again, and y'all are still mediocre. So I guess let's get to business.
Crazy how that works. And Wemby's still so young that Fox will have him for a couple years before we have to really do anything. So if it works, great, we'll bring him in. If not, it's not a big loss,
No, the pressure is not super high either. But again, I really think it's such an easy decision for De'Aaron Fox. And then again, I don't know that he's going to play to a standard that's going to max out the Spurs money as well with all the rest of the things they can do. So we'll see. He's going to get a big one. Like the next one's going to be big, but long term, this could still be a fairly good play for a guy who I think has been, at least, if nothing else, a fairly durable guy throughout his career.
Yeah, and you wonder, with whatever the injury was this year, how much he's just kind of not been as motivated to get back to playing for the Kings.
Yeah, this year I would not worry about. I think that his first game back is already a good sign that motivation is an interesting thing. So,
and I don't know what to make of him saying, because his wife's from the area, but he was saying she didn't want to come back here.
Well, there's a lot of pressure.
Which, I mean,
playing in the home market.
Well, he's not from here. His wife. I think it might just be more of a she didn't necessarily want to come to Texas thing, which would make sense to me.
That's fair, and I mean he's from Houston, so it's like there's a blessing and a curse that comes with playing for the hometown. So I'm sure he's going to find that out in the hard way too. But yeah, I mean, I love the trade. I think it's fine for the Kings. I think it's good enough. The Bulls also got their first round pick back this year because they lost that in the whole DeMar DeRozan acquiring from San Antonio situation. Yeah, just a funny one, man. But yeah, easy slam dunk trade. Nothing I could say that I would even really worry too much about with the Spurs. Just again, really in awe that all the young guys are still on the roster. That's not in awe because it's the way it should have been. This is a fair trade, in my opinion. But at the same time, to not even have to give up Keldon Johnson, pretty good.
Yeah, I like my big body.
So, I mean, he's not a perfect player, but at least it allows you another. That's a trade chip for another thing. It's whatever. All right, Caesar, it's time to punish you a little more here. The Mavericks decided to get back in the game. There was reports that Nico was eagerly working again to win over Miffles after making the craziest trade. Yeah, I mean, easily the craziest transaction in sports history at this point. I don't know. I'll extend it that far. Philadelphia was traded Quentin Grimes. This happened actually right before the two teams were set to play last night. Grimes did not suit up for Philadelphia. Caleb Martin did not suit up for Dallas. However, a lot of people were frustrated at this deal. At face value, giving up Quentin Grimes, unfortunate.
Oh, grimy.
old grimy, because he's had a great season. I think you really like what he's giving you, and they're probably going to have to go out and acquire a guard somehow to replace their guard depth. Uh, but really adding a 2000 or whatever it is at 2025 second round pick, which was Philadelphia's already. So again, this is another team reacquiring one of their picks in the trade. Philadelphia gets their second round pick back essentially. So it's not like the biggest cost in the world, but I think it's just a little insult to injury. Caleb Martin's also not I would say he's above average overall. I would say there's good argument that Quentin Grimes was better. Here's the argument that Nico Harrison would make, and while I understand that he is not in good graces, this one is a
Never
fair
will be
logic.
again.
This is a fair logical take on this one. Quentin Grimes was not able to restructure a deal with them because he was playing so well. So he was about to make a lot of money in the free agency period and was probably not going to return to the Dallas Mavericks. So they used him to go ahead and get a controllable player that they think is useful and that will still be somewhat of an asset, even if he's just another piece in a trade down the road. So that's Caleb Martin to the Mavericks. And again, though, it's a big defensive-oriented player, and when he's got hot streaks, he's a really good three-point asset.
Streaky shooter, noted.
But again, I said that carefully, right? So it's not a perfect player, but it's a good controllable contract, and it's a guy with a useful history of playing basketball in the playoffs. So they liked what they got out of it, and that's where the Mavs are at this point. It seems like maybe tonight has gotten to the close. I don't know if anyone's going to be really caring to do overnight trades this year, but we'll find out tomorrow morning, I guess.
Luka was traded.
What the hell could they even do? Like
midnight.
What do they have? It's not like they got a lot back in that Anthony Davis trade to be able to flip for more stuff.
Once we get to the bottom of my list, we'll talk about the one team that's missing from this whole list. That's probably the most interesting of all the teams. And they've got to do something. And if they don't, then it's a dead man walking the plank to finish the season. But we'll get into it. Actually, let me go ahead and remind myself here. All right. So the next trade. This one's another big one, at least big names, and it's controversial as well, definitely within the fan base. I would say we've had one trade here where the fan base that was receiving one of the biggest player in the trade is excited about it. This one doesn't seem to be. It seems to be on that same Luka wavelength where
Jaden Springer.
There's a little bit. No, not quite. No, I'll run through the dumps. We've got like 5 dumps I've got to just kind of blow through in a second. No offense to those dudes. But this one was the Milwaukee Bucks trading Chris Middleton, bringing in Kyle Kuzma, is the big part of it. Now, this was all we really saw of the trade initially, at least that big part. There's other pieces I'll get into, but that was the big part of the big headline of the trade. All that got kind of thrown to the shit about 30 minutes ago when we found out now New York's involved. So this is the official trade fully, at least as we stand so far. Lord knows this could change. Kyle Kuzma, Pat Baldwin, solid shooting wing. So you're getting no defense. You're getting pretty decent shooting when he's on. Jericho Sims, a decent athlete, big man from the University of Texas, has not played particularly well in the NBA. I think there's also maybe an argument that Tom Thibodeau's system maybe isn't built for everybody, and maybe this is a kid who could thrive in a more player-friendly environment like Doc Rivers. We shall see. They also get a second-round pick in that trade. Chris Middleton is banished to Washington. That is a very unfortunate way to trade or to treat your, what was he? Not finals MVP, but he was damn near close to it because obviously Giannis would have had that. Chris Middleton was a big part of their title run, but hey, they traded Drew Holiday, and you could argue maybe he was the second best player on that title-winning team anyway. So whatever. This is the Bucks trying to build around Giannis in the future. I'm not going to hate him too much for that. It's just unfortunate for Chris Middleton. Uh, what's interesting and what's having a lot of people look at the Bucks stupid right now is they gave up AJ Johnson in this deal. Now, that's not a big deal, probably to a lot of people, casual or not. AJ Johnson was a talented player picked in the later part of the draft, and it follows a trend of Milwaukee, for whatever reason, drafting incredibly young players that have very little basketball experience to a situation that I guess we would all consider to be win now. Any sport, what I just described to you sounds batshit insane. Football, whatever. It's so the Cowboys just did it this year, right? They sold us win now. Hey, we're gonna have a starting left tackle rookie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Teams do this. This is a thing. And AJ Johnson was one of those trends, and then not a bad player. Great pickup for Washington. If you really, it could be something that could be a franchise cornerstone down the road. I mean, he's really a talented kid, but he is kid. Emphasis on kid. I think he might be 19 right now. And then you do a 2028 pick swap. The Knicks get DeLon Wright, which is, I think, actually funny. And you know what's even funnier about the whole part of this trade? Kyle Kuzma could work out. I'm not that negative on Kyle Kuzma when he's in a good situation. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks ended up getting so much more use out of DeLon Wright, because I think Thibodeau's just like, if anything, Thibodeau might have found out about the trade today and then was like, "Hey, give me give me DeLon Wright. That's a guy. That's a guy that doesn't mind if I play him 50 minutes a night, even if we only go 48. He'll stay out there with me and play an extra 6. That's the kind of guy I need." And there you go. So I think that's the funny part of that trade is it's going to get a lot of headlines for them dumping the former franchise hero. It's going to get a lot of headlines because people think Kyle Kuzma is the worst player in basketball. And statistically, there's an argument there this year. But I think really the funniest part to me is that DeLon Wright might be the most relevant piece of this whole trade. Like I was mentioning, tomorrow we'll probably have a lot of people dumping players and moving players to duck the luxury taxes, to move money around for maybe future deals, maybe future signings, whatever it is. We had some of those today already. KJ Martin was sent to the Pistons with 2 draft picks, 2 second-round picks. Basically, just they're going to absorb his money. Maybe they have use for him, maybe they don't, whatever. Philadelphia gets to have more money to play with, gets to get under the tax. So now they can get into the buyout market. Now they can make different trades, whatever it is. That's the idea there. Celtics, they just basically did cap relief. The Celtics are spending a lot of money on this championship team. Jaden Springer was brought in because they legitimately thought he could play in the playoffs as a defensive guard. He did not. He has not shown that he can even bust into their rotation in the regular season, and they're pretty generous with the rotation minutes, especially to the bench. And he just really never caught on. So I think that's just them saying, "All right, cool, whatever. He may still be a talented player. Houston's got opportunity. They're young. They've got cap space still because they're not paying anybody. Here, pay them. Please take our guy. Save us a little extra money." Because you have to remember, they don't make that much money necessarily when you're looking at it, but with the tax penalties these teams pay, they're paying like 4 times as much as what you're looking at in reality. So there's a lot of incentive to move off the contracts in those situations. Daniel Tice, not as much. He only made like basically the vet minimum, but they got rid of him because it was just enough. This is New Orleans dumping him into Oklahoma City. They attached a draft pick there too, because Sam Presti, you got to pay the piper to deal with Sam Presti. Got to pay the troll toll. All right, I'm glad no one finished that. And and
You got to pay the troll toll to get in. I'll just skip a line.
And so, yeah, the goal with that move for New Orleans is strictly to duck the luxury tax. That's because their team fucking sucks and they may have to make other moves. They may have to do a lot of stuff. So why would they pay extra money for a team that clearly has not even playoff aspirations? And then finally, we have 2 trades that are interesting. One of them is funny. Again, this is the Sacramento Kings saying, how mediocre can we be? Guys, I posed this in a group chat earlier. I said the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bulls are infamous for their mediocrity. If anything, people are like, man, they're writing the book on how to be mediocrity. The fans are yelling at their to the heavens about the atrocity these owners are pulling. They're getting away with a money laundering scam, right? But we really don't give the Kings enough credit for being really good at it, at least recently. This recent run, this Vivek, whenever he got ownership of this team, we thought he was about to take the Boogie Cousins era and maybe potentially give it life. And instead, he set blaze to that and he set a trail of mediocrity for them. And it's been impressive, guys. It's been very impressive. Every moment he's had a chance to double down on mediocrity, he has. They get a great player like Tyrese Halliburton. Nope, ship him out. I need Domantas fucking Sabonis. And now they have Jonas Valanciunas, his Lithuanian brother. So Sacramento also investing in the Lithuanian audience. Um, obviously, if you've watched international basketball, these two guys have beaten the piss out of a lot of people together. There's going to be easy chemistry there. I actually do like the move, both in the fact that I'll watch this team more than I did the previous version of it, and in the fact that, like, again, this is another impressive way to be mid. Like, I didn't think you could outdo yourself, but this is a really mid roster, and it has so much cook that full energy. And I honestly hope they kind of fuck around and win a playoff series. They won't do any more than that, but I just think it's kind of a you want to root for it team, even though you know it's built stupid. The Wizards get 2 second-round picks, and then City Sissoko, who poor guy had to put on the Sacramento Kings stuff, talk to the media, and then find out that he's headed to the shithole of Washington.
Oof.
Yeah. And I think this is finally, we're at 10 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday before the deadline. And I think we finally have our last big one for now. Tomorrow, who knows? But the Golden State Warriors, after 48 hours, basically since Luka touchdown in Los Angeles, they have been frantically letting it be known that they are calling not only about Kevin Durant, not only about Paul George, whatever. Someone specifically said they've called about every single all-star in the NBA. And
Cast a wide net.
that just, I mean, it's also just funny when you leak it, because a lot of people and I even talked about this. The Lakers and the Warriors were going to try to win this deadline and then who's going to pretend to be the contender moving forward. The Lakers kind of did it in a weird way, but if you actually want to get into are they a contender this year, maybe the odds aren't that great there. But the Warriors, we thought, okay, now they're going to fake it. They're going to be the team that just fakes it. But no, they also decide we're actually going to pull the trigger now. We told you that story about the tale of two timelines and how we're not going to use all these assets to go get these great players that have become available since we've had them. No, we're gonna develop James Wiseman. We're going to develop Andrew Wiggins further. We're going to develop all these other Jonathan Kuminga. And I guess they still get a chance with that one. But now the Warriors have sold at least a little bit on the future. And Jimmy Butler will be playing with Draymond Green. Steve Kerr's heart condition could be at an all-time worse. But I do love the move, if for nothing else but giving Steph Curry a little bit of hope when he goes out on a basketball court. There wasn't a lot of that for the last couple months. And it's crazy because they were the best team in basketball to start, and I was kind of like, I don't know, man. And then the truth became evident, and hey, give the team credit for noticing it. This deal got weird. Like I said, it was originally announced to be a 5-team trade, but then now, just kidding. No, it's not. The way it seems to be reported, I think Mark Stein said this, or Shams did. It is a straight up trade where Andrew Wiggins, PJ Tucker, but there's no way that is, because then PJ Tucker can't be straight up if he's from Utah. See, these guys are completely out of there. Like, they're just out here tweeting shit and pretending like we're all gonna follow along as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it as a 4-team trade. I don't know when this was last updated.
I think we should just continue to call it a 4-team trade. and then
Golden
laugh
State,
about-
Miami, Detroit, and Utah.
But it was a 5-team trade that did get taken down to 4 at least here potentially.
All right.
Because now the Heat have control of Andrew Wiggins, PJ Tucker, Kyle Anderson in a protected Golden State first round pick. It's top 10 this year. If it doesn't convey, it's top 10 next year.
It's
So it's
unprotected.
cement.
It says unprotected following.
Unprotected following.
So that
For
means
Golden
if it's not
State's
top
pick.
10 this year, then it's unprotected the year after
Oh,
that.
unprotected following. Okay. Zach Lowe tweeted something else.
But again, I don't know. They might have more updated information than what I'm looking at here. So
And it might be different by the time it actually gets sent to league offices. That happens plenty. So there was a 5th team. Kyle Anderson was supposed to be rerouted to Toronto, but then apparently that got shut down at some point. Dennis the Menace is now, after getting traded slavery, is now playing basketball in Utah.
he got traded twice this week, right?
Yeah. His travel vlog's doing great. Heading to the what is that? The Alps? They have Alps there.
No,
Alps in Utah?
no.
Mormons. That's all I got. They have Post Malone.
Post Malone.
Anyway,
Love that.
Anyway, the Pistons took on bullshit basically again because they have a lot of money, so might as well. Lindy Waters has been a solid player. Josh Richardson's been mostly injured this season, but did seem to look nice, so maybe he gets bought out and somebody claims him. I think Lindy Waters will probably just play for the Pistons. They get a 2nd-round pick in the deal. The Warriors then extended Jimmy Butler for 2 seasons, giving him like $60 a year doing so. So I think Jimmy should be happy with that. And I think by the time they get to the end of
For
that
a
deal,
year.
maybe he takes a better deal or he just gets to fuck off. Who knows? We'll see by then. But that's the big trade. That was the one that we thought was coming. And it's been like 2 or 3 months worth of Jimmy throwing a tantrum and trying to get the fuck out of Dodge. So he's finally got his wish, and now I guess we'll see. I like the move because now that I look at it, they really don't give up a lot. I still don't love it because Brandon Podziemski had kind of regressed a little bit, so I'm worried about how much he's going to be better. But I do like their rotation of people. They probably are still, similar to the Lakers deal, where it's like, cool, this is a really nice trade. I think they're a little closer, right, the timeline wise. But then you're looking at the roster and you're like, there's still some pretty core pieces missing too if you're trying to win this 25 title, and I think for the Lakers, they can easily say, well, we're gonna really compete for the 26th title now, and we're gonna have LeBron one more time, and we're really built around Luka and blah blah blah. The Warriors are making this move to try to win this title, so it is more critical what their end of bench depth looks like. So I do think there's a lot of work for them to do this year. I also think it's not surprising to see a lot of teams dumping salary wherever they can. And I look for that to be a thing tomorrow because the buyout market could be potentially like robust this year. Lonzo Ball did get an extension, so he will not be a part of it. But there is still a lot of interesting players, Ben Simmons being the highlight. I mean, I know no one wants to hear the Ben Simmons story again, but let's not kid ourselves in the value of basically a free former all-star who's still below his 30s. Whatever role you have for him, that could potentially be a very big swing for a team like we've never seen before in the buyout market. So we'll find out what the Nets do with him moving forward. But there's one team to talk about because I think the trades are over. I don't think we have to linger on this too long. But there is a team that I didn't mention today, and perhaps we'll have a lot of conversations about them next week. The Phoenix Suns have made no moves, which is incredible because they benched their $20 million a year worth center like a month ago, so, and he's just not with the team at all. So now you're probably not even going to move that asset, and he's probably just going to rot on the bench, and then you still have to get rid of that contract at the end of the year because I think it's still got time on it.
Which one? Who was that?
That's Yusuf Nurkic.
Hmm.
And then you went to go on this Jimmy Butler saga. You wanted it badly. He wanted it badly. But Bradley Beal, inexplicably, because the Washington Wizards are also one of those just incredibly ran franchises, gave that man a no trade clause. And he said, no, I don't want to move my family. That even got leaked to the media exactly. And, honestly,
Which it's a little stunning in that it's like, hey, a lot of players love Miami. Nobody really thinks of Phoenix as a go-to destination for really anything. And in terms of just living, like, oh, who wants to move
yeah.
the desert?
So we haven't heard it a lot from players. I think we've heard it from some older players, but I don't think we've heard it a lot from younger players. However, we have heard a lot of people that are big sports pundits. I think Bill Simmons has been the loudest about it. The Phoenix Suns have been a sleeping giant potential team for a while. Madish Ishbia, he inherited an incredible opportunity. He immediately traded for Kevin Durant. We applauded him. He took a team that, look, they fizzed out in the playoffs with a team that was aging. Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, that you're not sure if he's focused or not, and you make kind of a rash decision. And I don't know if it was Kevin Durant. I don't know if it was Devin Booker. I don't know what actually happened. But you consciously not only took on the Bradley Beal deal, which was incredibly hard to take on, we all knew that, but came with this incredible deal breaker of a trade clause. You did it anyway, which is fine. But on top of that deal, you also traded DeAndre Ayton essentially and dumped him. And not only did you dump him, you managed to take on $20 million worth of an offensive center. And to be nice to Yusuf Nurkic, to justify his purpose, he needs to be on a team like maybe even like the Mavericks, where you now have an Anthony Davis at the 4 and maybe another rim protector on the bench to sub out for you. Because Yusuf Nurkic can be a useful player, but he's not a defensive player. He cannot play defense. He has proven this time and time again, to say the least. And he's kind of got some other inefficiencies that don't make it that much better. He's a useful guy, but to some extent. And to his contract level, he's not useful, especially when you're 3 massive salaries deep in a tough league to be capped out in. It's incredible what the Suns have gotten themselves into. They have no draft picks to speak of at this point for the most part. They have only options to hit the button. And so now, even if you believe the Kevin Durant rumors that he's on his way out, which seems to be a very popular thing with a lot of people, national, local, whoever, they're all saying the same tune.
Their draft picks aren't so terrible. They got 2 firsts this year.
The Suns?
Yeah.
From whom?
Okay. This one's confusing. They have their own. This one is Utah will receive the 2 most favorable of its first. There's a lot. It's like 4 teams.
Yeah. So that's not a situation you want to be in. They have options,
but they have their own first round picks for the next couple of years. So
this shouldn't have them that easily controlled. So if they do, they may not be fully in control of them.
Yeah, there's some rights to swaps, and oh my god, this is the longest paragraph ever.
Yes. That is how that screen looks. I know exactly what you're looking at. So yeah, the couple things I want to mention with the Suns to look out. So the Mavericks, yes, there's already been jokes and conversations. Essentially, the Mavericks would have to mortgage most of their team and put themselves pretty thin going into the playoffs. I don't think that's impossible for them to do, but just to be fair, Kevin Durant did shut down the Warriors more or less, it felt like, and that's why Jimmy Butler is now a Warrior. That seems to be credible reporting at this point and fairly believable. And then one final report that I thought was interesting, and I think this is the worst case scenario button for the Suns, and I don't think they hit it this deadline, but I think they might hit it this off season. And I do believe that's true from the team. And that's who I think leaked it. I think Houston is I think Houston wants Devin Booker. Maybe Kevin Durant.
Well, the
but I
Suns
think
came
Devin
out and
Booker.
said Booker's staying, right? Like of everyone else.
That's what we're hearing right now, and I
Okay.
agree. It makes sense to if you're going to admit that you just fucked up incredibly with the Beal trade and the Nurkic trade, and now that's going to cost you the Durant era. You don't necessarily want to go and get rid of Booker as well. But if it all comes to being the worst situation and you have no way to get yourself out, the only answer might be to sell Devin Booker to the highest bidder. And at this point, I think Houston would be one of the highest bidders. And I think they were the ones who leaked that they wanted him because I do think that he fits and he would make sense for how they could get better and how maybe they could take a young team into the next level.
Sounds like Phoenix is fucked in the long term either way.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I left them for last year. I mean, I thought there maybe was a way you could break Nurkic's contract up into something useful. Maybe they still can. They still have a day that can maybe salvage and buy this team a little more time. But yeah, unless you find a team that Bradley Beal wants to go to, you really don't have the ability to even save your cap by breaking his contract into other pieces, because at least that would be an option in another scenario. I mean, the Lakers were able to salvage a lot after breaking Russell Westbrook's deal up. You know, it wasn't a perfect return, but it was good enough to get them sort of back on track. So it might have to be something like that. But with Beal, you have he has to say yes. Russell Westbrook just had to be told where to go and what money, whose money to take. You know, that's an easier thing to pull off. This is way harder.
I mean, with that, with Beal, it so it, he doesn't want to move his family, right? So I would assume that that's him kind of saying, "I want to stay near the West." So could the Clippers take on Beal?
Yeah, I mean there's some
That's
teams.
moving your family though. Like,
Yeah, you're
I mean,
moving
they
your,
were
your family
remotely
like
close
2
to
hours.
Phoenix.
I think
3 hours west.
I also think what
Wow.
Bradley Beal might mean by that is that in the middle of the season it's difficult. It's also easier to move your family in the summer with the kids, you know what I mean? Like I think he is more or less saying, if this is gonna go kaput, I don't really want to do this until the summer because fuck y'all, I don't owe
It's
you
a
anything.
5-hour drive from. Oh, it's Vegas. Sorry.
So that's my opinion on that. I think Brad Beal probably is more or less like, no, this sucks. Like you guys traded for me. You guys, thought you said you're going to make this work. And to be fair to Beal, even though he's not the perfect player, and I get the criticism from him, Yusuf Nurkic was always the reason I said this doesn't make sense. Yusuf Nurkic makes no fucking sense on this roster. You hired a defensive coach to make sure 3 offensive players would be fine defensively, and then you tank them by bringing in a guy who has no ability to play defense and then being like, this is our defensive stopper. That was batshit. That was easily one of the craziest decisions. And at the time, I was like, this is a poor decision. But I assumed that they were going to take his $20 million and whatever assets they had left and bring in a better, more equipped piece to handle business. And they just never have. Maybe they still can, but they just, at this point, apparently to take on their, even to take his money, people are charging them, let alone how much it would cost you to take on his money for a good player. So, yeah, Ishbia. All this to try to get at his boy Dan Gilbert, and Dan Gilbert's got a super team.
Yeah.
I don't root for Dan Gilbert by any means. I don't want to pick a side in rich guy beef, but I enjoy rich guy beef all the time. I want them both to lose. I don't think it's possible, but if we can find a scenario.
I mean, the Cavs are the first one to pass the Phil Jackson line, so they might be real.
They're good, but they're not unbeatable. But yeah, they're real as fuck. Tonight was another good example of how even when you think that you got them, they got a lot of good on that team. That's it. We'll get into more of how this shapes the NBA next week because there's more shaping to be done. at this point. We're excited for the Spurs,
Yes.
and we are still stupefied by the Mavericks, but we're not completely hopeless, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. I'm not the diehard. I'm not saying that. I'm just still saying that while I think Nico Harrison has
The team on
brass
the court's
balls,
not hopeless. It's
yeah,
just
I think Nico Harrison has brass balls, but I think that I'm still interested to see how he lands the plane.
You already
If
crashed it in my opinion.
if he lands it.
No, look, have you seen planes recently in the U.S.? There's
No,
not a whole lot of good landings. happening
trust me,
right
I'm
now.
not excited to hop on any anytime soon.
Oh, I'm hopping on one next month. That's terrifying me. Yeah, I got no faith in what the Buffs are doing. That's just me, and thousands of others.
Thousands. Well, this is the new normal.
well. On that note, we'll be back next week to either listen to Caesar brag for 3 hours or cry for 3 hours, and he's right to do both. So
Listen,
we'll see how it
Or
goes.
both,
if there is loss, I'm just gonna be despondent for the entire time that we're on. I'll be here physically. Mentally, I will be brain dead.
All right. Well,
Beautiful.
thank you guys for another week, and talk to y'all soon.
Fly Eagles fly.
Deuces.